on and both sides. It says on here now. Is that what you need?
Yes. All right, welcome back to work sessions. Back to you, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Washington County Board of Commissioners work session for Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. We will pick back up on the topics of our posted agenda. Before we do that, Commissioner Fye, you've raised your hand.
Work session this morning, I forgot something that I would like to bring it forward now. And that is, I will be also joining you all on Monday night, AOC's dinner.
Okay, thank you. So at this juncture, I'd like to turn it over to Laurel Brown, our Facilities and Park Services Division Manager, and Greg Wyman, our Real Property Manager, to take us through an update. Welcome, and thank you for patiently waiting.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much. I am just going to turn this right over to Greg, who is our subject matter expert.
Terrific.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Greg Wyman. I'm the Real Property Manager for Washington County under the Facilities and Park Services Division. I'm here to present a brief real property update to your board, a recommendation from the 2018 audit. This update covers the fiscal years 2021 and 21-22. I will highlight the real property portfolio, including properties disposition, properties acquired, overall portfolio, and major initiatives.
Do we have the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
There it is. Magic behind all the technology. Does the clicker work?
Clicker does not appear to be working.
Is it on? Is there a side button to, how do you turn it on?
There you go. Yeah. There we go. All right, thank you. Properties dispositioned were a total of 20 over the last 2 fiscal years. There was one that was a dedication to right-of-way. There were 3 that were conveyed to a nonprofit, that was Habitat for Humanity. And there were 6 that were conveyed to governmental jurisdictions, which were City of Hillsborough. There were 5 that were sold at real property auction and 5 that were sold through private sale. And the revenues generated from those 20 properties represented $1,894,000 for the last 2 fiscal years.
And I assume that goes into the general fund?
It does. Properties acquired. We purchased 1 property for the county, and that was the Hillsborough Bridge Shelter. There were 1 property that came into our portfolio from a remnant from land use and transportation road project. And then 18 were deeded to the county through property tax foreclosure for non-payment of property taxes. And that brought 20 back into the portfolio. Excuse me, there we go. The overall portfolio through fiscal 21-22 represents 308 properties within our portfolio. 30 of those are assets, which would be considered county buildings or parking lots. There are 3 parks. There are 12 timber properties. Those are forest properties that we have in the portfolio. And there are 263 other. The other comprises anything from green spaces, water quality treatment facilities, properties that are not necessarily utilized by the county and are ready for disposition.
Could I ask a quick question on the assets? Someone mentioned to me recently that the county owns the building that Community Action operates out of, and I don't know if that's true or not. So I was just wondering, and feel free to take it, Ms. Angie, as a follow-up. How many assets do we have that are provided to nonprofits or others operation here in Washington County. That's
We'll
And-
provide that as a follow-up.
And at what cost? If it's no cost, that's fine. I'm just curious what the cost structure
Okay.
is there.
We'll follow up with that information.
We can provide that information to the board.
thanks.
As you're providing information, could you take a look at, we used to have a lot of properties that would be abutting, things that are, could be developed into parks or adjacent to parks. Not my neck of the woods, like the wildlife refuge. You're never going to get that, a lot of those lands, but if anybody forecloses and like to give it to the refuge in other areas, it might be a nature park. And so I don't think us maintaining ground that's my personal opinion, makes a lot of sense unless we have some use. And if we can find a use that will serve for the next 50 generations, that's even better. So I don't know, you might in your report, just let us know that. I don't know where these properties are. You probably have a map and they're probably remnants all over the place, but yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Rogers, we can take a look at that also and take a deeper dive into what could be utilized as parks properties. Major initiatives for fiscal 21-22 is the real property policy and procedures 703 and 703A respectively. That was adopted by your board by resolution in order 21-102. The onboarding of the real property management software system Space. Previously, the county has managed all of the inventory and assets they have through basically spreadsheets and databases systems. We went out and we looked at what other counties in the state of Oregon were using, and I'm happy to report that Washington County, once again, is the leader in things. No other counties are using anything other than databases and spreadsheets to track their properties. So we are kind of the leader in that. We have adopted a program that is a real property management software program that will track leases as well as owned properties, and we can run reports from those. We can generate reports driven on revenue, billings for tenants, etc. So this is a great tool in our toolbox for Washington County to have to really manage that portfolio better. The real property auction that was also held last year on December 8th, 2021. In addition to the major initiatives, the real property team is actively engaged in dispositioning properties through public real property auctions, conveyance to other governmental agencies and qualified nonprofits, and private sales under the Oregon Revised Statute of properties that are no longer needed or intended for county use. The next public auction will be held this December the 14th, and we're hoping to generate another bit of revenue from that. We have approximately 18 properties, 4 of which are under consideration right now to convey to a nonprofit. So we may end up with 14 properties to take to that auction on December the 14th. Additionally, the team provides support and collaboration to various divisions across the county, identifying, negotiating, purchasing, and onboarding county-owned assets. Most recently, with HHS Behavioral Health for the onboarding of the CAT building over on Elam Young. We are also working with housing to identify options for sheltering and permanent housing solutions.
Mr. Wynum, if I can just add context on housing. Prior to any disposition, the team does work closely with housing to ensure that the sites are not suitable for alternative shelter uses.
Yes, thank you. We always take our auction list out. We circulate that to our internal partners within the county, as well as other governmentals, nonprofits, and we circulate that asking if anyone has interest to convey those properties to them with or without consideration for the betterment of the public and for housing. With that, I'm going to conclude my update and ask if there are any further questions.
I'll start if you don't mind. Since 3 of us joined this board in January of 2019, there have been some changes to property use as well as to some properties that the county owns. And I think I mentioned this to Ms. Angie, and you may recently, and you may be looking into that. But I just wanted to highlight my questions to the board and to see if we have any other ones. Just, ouch, sorry, hit a funny bone. Just by example, the elections department moved from the East Murray building to a leased building. But I don't recall, there were some visions for utilization of the rest of the building, but I don't recall us getting an update back on that, or I don't remember. Then there was the acquisition of a property over here off of Adams, and what may or may not be happening with that older building use. Then I know that the Adams Street building, there have been some changes. So I'm just wondering how things have settled out. That's all. And how you might like to respond in the future or any updates.
So thank you for that question, Chair, and sharing your curiosity with the board. David Martinez, Assistant County Administrator, is working with Ms. Brown and team to bring that information back to the board because it is somewhat of a game of chess as we look at our facilities. So the timing of this information will coincide nicely when we come back to your board with the first list of a CIP because some aspirations have funding scenarios tied to them and some do not. And so that's important context to know as we have these chess pieces and frankly, these needs to ensure that we have sound facilities for our staff.
Great. And I don't know, I think now is a great time, commissioners, colleagues, if you have other curiosities to share with one another or or with Ms. Angie.
I would just like to bring up, I believe we communicated with you, Laurel, about a request that came through community action for the use of a parking facility and whether or not the parking facility on the property that the chair just mentioned on Murray Boulevard, where Van is located in the sheriff's office. And my first question is, am I going the right direction by asking you or to
Ms. Angie.
Ms. Angie? Sorry.
Director Kemp Shuey of Community Action has connected with me on this request. Ms. Brown is looking at this. We are not in a position of any type of investment to invest in another entity's needs. So we will be, as we do with partners, listen to what the needs are and to see if it could be viable. We also need to balance the needs and uses of our own facility and parking, et cetera.
Thank you. And the question was, then we're going in the right direction to make sure that it goes to you and from there. Because all of us sit on boards that have needs and requests that come through on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that. I think in the future, something as we start this first iteration of a capital improvement planning, another sound policy that we'll need to think of is how do we handle these requests that come in so that we're thoughtful, strategic, and equitable with community partners who have access to these public spaces. That's a challenge. And I do want to just lift that up, that'll have to be a discussion moving forward.
Thank you. I agree.
Things. One, in the past, many years ago, we used to have a map of where these all are, and if you can continue to maintain that, that's helpful. And the second that we've never ever had, but I've always been curious about, is that we always see properties once they're in the foreclosure. Do you have any sense of how many properties are about to be in the foreclosure? Meaning that they're once they don't pay their taxes, or how many years before they go to foreclosure? I forget it.
There's a period of approximately 5 years of non-payment of taxes and then a 2-year redemption period before the county takes foreclosure deed on those.
7 years in.
7 years. And the real property department under Facilities Park Services Division works closely with assessment and taxation. We are ahead of the curve on that. They have been producing a list about 3 years out that we are actually working in conjunction with them to connect them to services. We go out and we do boots on the ground, knock on the door, visit people, particularly those residences where we would be at risk of displacing a resident, not so much a property where it might be a piece of rural farmland or something else that's not even buildable. And then we try to connect them with services to avoid that foreclosure process, get them funding through other means. And we were successful this last year. We only had 2 homes that were taken. One, the individual was deceased and the heirs of the family did not want the property because it was subject to a federal tax lien. And the other one was, we had made numerous attempts that was elevated up through the board. And people were aware of it. And this individual just chose not to pay their taxes and surrendered the home peacefully.
So what might be helpful, maybe just to me, nobody else, not a map of those properties. You can give us a map of the ones we currently own, but if you had some sort of totals, like they have at year the 6, I have 50 properties of this nature and this value. Year 5, year 4, because you said you had 3 years out all the time. It's just
Yes.
interesting to see if you're trying to forecast and see what's ahead of you, to know what might be there. And I certainly understand that you do everything possible to not go into foreclosure. I get that. But, you know, if you're not aware, you can't plan either. And wouldn't, I'll say it here, nobody else probably agrees, but I think we're heading into a recession, and I think that you're going to see a lot of properties. And it's nice to kind of have some awareness of what's going on. So.
We'll work closely with assessment and taxation for a forward look of what properties are in currently in tax foreclosure process and provide that to the board.
I don't, yeah.
We also know that what level of recessions we've had over the last 25 years. And so it might be interesting to test the theory that there is an increase of foreclosures with recessions, and every recession is different, brought on for different means, different duration, different depths. So it might be useful if assessment and taxation, Ms. Angie, has the ability to correlate for a recession period, what for the next 7 years basis might have been a summary, just to test the theory to make sure that we are accurately speaking to past behavior.
I like,
So,
very good.
but I'll make that request of you, given staff's capacity.
We will look into it and see what we can accomplish. I do want to underscore just how impressed I am by the cross-departmental One Washington County work on coming to support these community members in finding solutions during the foreclosure process. It's not something we talk about openly because we want to honor those community members.
Yeah.
But a lot is happening behind the scenes from a cross-departmental approach.
So speaking of map, Commissioner Rogers had mentioned a map. So looking at slide 4, the summary table of types, I'm really interested in knowing for the first rows of that table, assets, parks, and timber, or I don't need the other 263 mapped. I'm assuming that the buildings that we also lease could be part of that mapping. Okay. And then for the others, it would be useful to know how many categories you have to represent other. I appreciated your articulating green space, water quality, but just how many general types are there? I don't need a complete list, but it helps me be a little bit more sensitive to the scope of work that we ask our administrator and team to manage on behalf of the community.
Yes, part of our facilities plan will definitely tie into the assets. parks and timber, and those will be identified in that facilities plan because those are all county buildings, including leased properties that we lease for some type of operation within the county. The others, we can certainly break that down and give you a category. We have those within our spreadsheets currently of what we categorize those. Some of them are more internal to us just for our own description.
your
We
own
certainly
tracking.
can
Yeah.
give that to you.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you in advance for working on that information. And when you do bring it to us in terms of the CIP and the facilities plan, it's a-okay to say, you had previously asked so that I can continue to get it. I really appreciate your patience for my information needs and curiosities about how it is you do this incredible work for our community. Really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure to have you join us in our now hybrid meeting domain for the last 2 years. I don't know how many different presentations you've made to us over Zoom. It's been wonderful, but it's a pleasure to see you in person.
Thank you, Chair Harrington.
Commissioners, I didn't mean to monopolize the mic. Are there any other questions or comments you'd like to make?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I think
Thank
we're
you.
done with this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will be moving to an executive session, and after the executive session, we'll be taking our lunch break and reconvening our work session time certain because we have outside speakers at 1 p.m. So at this juncture, I'd like to ask for a motion to move to executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub E for the purposes of discussing property negotiations.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you. And I would ask any members in our audience who are not involved with